Kellen was a small boy with bright green skin and wide, curious eyes. He lived in a world far away from Earth, a world called Varelia, a place of shining stars and giant cities in the sky. Kellen's mother was the empress of all Varelia. She was strong and wise, but very lonely. Kellen felt the loneliness too. One day, Kellen found a secret message hidden deep inside the great library of the palace. It told of a strange planet called Earth, where humans lived. The message said that humans were special, brave and kind even in hard times. Kellen thought about his mother. Maybe a human could help her. Maybe a human could be a father to him. Kellen made a bold choice. He would go to Earth and find a human who could marry his mother, Empress Valxara. He hoped this would bring peace and happiness to his family, and maybe to the whole galaxy. The next night, Kellen sneaked away from the palace. He climbed into a small starship hidden behind the tall towers. His heart beat fast with fear and hope. The ship hummed to life, and soon he was flying through space, faster than he ever had before. After many days, Kellen's ship landed quietly in a small town on Earth. He walked carefully among the humans, feeling strange but excited. People stared at him, but no one stopped him. He had to find a human, strong and good. In a dusty garage, Kellen saw a man working on an old engine. The man's hands were rough and his clothes were dirty, but there was something kind in his eyes. Kellen thought, "This is the one." He stepped forward and said in his clear, small voice, "Human, my mother must have a husband. I beg for a father. Please marry her and rule the galaxy." The man looked up, shocked. "What, are you joking?" Kellen shook his head. "No, I am Kellen, Prince of Varelia. My mother is Empress Valxara. She is lonely. I want you to help us." The man was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. "Kid, you got a wild story, but why me? I'm just a mechanic." "Because you are brave." "Because you are kind," Kellen said. "Please." Before the man could answer, a bright light filled the garage. A huge ship landed outside with a soft boom. People ran away in fear. The man stared at the glowing symbol on the ship. It was the mark of Varelia. Soldiers in shining armor stepped out. They moved quickly and gently took Kellen and the man inside the ship. The man's name was James Carter. He was confused, but curious. The ship was enormous inside, with walls that glittered like stars and machines that hummed quietly. Kellen smiled. "Welcome to Varelia." James could not believe his eyes. Outside the windows, stars flashed by like lightning. The ship flew, faster than anything he had ever seen. After a while, the ship landed on a giant platform high above a sea of clouds. James saw buildings made of light and metal, towers that touched the sky, and gardens with glowing flowers. Kellen led him through tall doors into a great hall. There, standing on a raised platform, was Empress Valxara. Her silver eyes shone like the moon and her voice was calm but strong. "James Carter," she said, "you come from a small world, yet my son asks for you to be his father. Tell me, why should I trust you?" James swallowed. He was just a simple man, but he felt a fire inside. "Because I am honest, because I want to help, and because I will protect your son." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You must prove your words. The galaxy is dangerous. To marry me, you must unite the 3 great houses of Varelia. Only then will you become worthy." James looked at Kellen. The boy's face was hopeful but serious. "I don't know how to do that," James said quietly. Kellen put a hand on James's shoulder. "I will help you. Please, do this for my mother and me." The Empress smiled softly. "Very well. Your test begins now." James left the great hall with Kellen. Outside, 3 massive towers rose against the sky. Each belonged to a different house: the Fireborn Zarn, the Silent Zari, and the Iron Clan. James knew he had to find a way to bring them together. But he was just a man from Earth, not a prince or warrior. Kellen looked at him with trust. "We can do this. Together." James took a deep breath. He looked up at the stars and felt something new inside. Hope, courage, and a chance to become more than just a mechanic. For the first time in a long time, James believed he could change the galaxy. James Carter had never imagined he would find himself in a palace among the stars. The world of Varelia was unlike anything on Earth. The tall towers shimmered with light, and strange machines floated silently in the air. The air smelled clean and sharp, and the sky was filled with many moons. James stood before Empress Valsara in the Grand Hall. She was tall and proud, with silver eyes that seemed to see everything. Her voice was calm, but full of power. "You are not from this galaxy," she said softly. "Yet my son believes you can help us. Marry me, rule with me, and bring peace to Varelia." James felt the weight of her words. He was just a simple man, a mechanic back on Earth. What could he do here, in a world of empires and warriors? Valsara continued, "To prove your worth, you must unite the three great houses. The Fireborn Zarn, the Silent Zari, and the Iron Clan have been enemies for generations. If you succeed, you will have my trust. And my hand." James swallowed hard. "I don't know their ways. I don't have power or armies." The Empress nodded. "You have something else. Honesty, courage, and the heart of a father. Your son believes in you. That is why I give you this chance." Kellen the boy smiled and took James's hand. "I will help you. We can learn together." The first house was the Fireborn Zarn. Their tower was a giant of black stone and glowing red cracks. It looked like a volcano ready to erupt. When James entered, he felt the heat and heard the sound of roaring flames. The Zarn were warriors. They believed strength was the only way to rule. Their leader was a tall man named Rokar, with skin like burnt metal and eyes like fire. Rokar looked down at James and laughed. "You are a weak human. Why should we listen to you?" James looked Rokar in the eye. "Because I am honest. Because I want peace, not war." Rokar growled and challenged James to a duel. James knew he was no fighter, but he did not run. He used his mind. He asked Rokar questions about honor and loyalty. Slowly, Rokar's anger faded. He respected James's courage. "You have spirit," Rokar said. "I will consider your words." Next, James went to the Silent Zari. Their tower was tall and white, smooth like ice. Inside, everything was quiet. The Zari spoke little and moved like shadows. The leader was Zyra, a woman with pale skin and eyes that glowed softly. She tested James with riddles and puzzles. If he failed, he would be trapped forever in their silent maze. James felt the fear in the silence, but he remembered how his mother used to tell him stories on Earth. He used his logic and imagination to solve the riddles. Zyra's face softened. "You think like us," she said. "You see beyond the noise. You may have a place here." Finally, James visited the Iron Clan. Their tower was made of metal and machines. The Iron Clan trusted only technology and logic. They were cold and distant. Their leader was a robot called Vex, who spoke with a voice of metal. Vex asked James to fix a broken machine, a task impossible for most. James smiled. "I'm a mechanic." He carefully studied the machine, worked with his hands, and repaired it. Vex's eyes blinked in surprise. "You understand machines. You are useful." James had won respect from all three houses, but not trust yet. He returned to Empress Valsara. "They listen to me, but they do not trust me yet. What must I do?" Valsara smiled. "They must see your heart. A test of loyalty and sacrifice awaits." Suddenly, the palace alarm rang. Outside, a ship was approaching. Not Varelian, but from the Zark's dominion, enemies of the Empire. Valsara's face grew hard. "They will try to stop us." James felt fear, but also something new. Determination. Keelan looked up at him and said, "We need you, Father." James nodded. "Then I will stand with you." As the Zark's fleet attacked, James prepared to fight. not just as a mechanic but as a protector of Varelia. He took Valsara's hand. Together, the Empress nodded. Together. James Carter stood at the foot of the three great towers that ruled Varelia's sky. Each tower belonged to a powerful house: the Fireborn Zarn, the Silent Zari, and the Iron Clan. If he wanted to marry Empress Valsara and become a father to Kalon, he had to unite these houses. But James was only a man from Earth, a mechanic with no power or weapons. His heart beat fast, but he knew he had to try. Kellen was watching him with hope. The first tower was the Fireborn Zarn. It was dark, stone with red cracks glowing like fire. Flames danced inside the windows. The air smelled of smoke and heat. James stepped inside and the room felt like a forge. Rokar, the leader of the Zarn, was waiting. His skin was rough like burnt metal, and his eyes burned with anger. When he saw James, he laughed loudly. "A weak human? What can you do here?" Rokar growled. "You have no strength, no army. Why should we follow you?" James stood his ground. "I have no army, but I have courage. I want peace, not war. If we fight, we all lose. We must work together." Rokar sneered. "Words are weak. Prove your strength." James did not want to fight, but he had no choice. Rokar challenged him to a duel. James knew he was no warrior, but he trusted his mind. When the duel began, James dodged and used the room's heat to his advantage. He noticed the walls had metal plates that could reflect heat. Using quick thinking, James tricked Rokar and made him stumble. It was not a victory by strength, but by cleverness. Rokar looked at James with new respect. "You are not weak. You have spirit. Maybe you can lead." James nodded and said, "Thank you. Let us be allies." Rokar smiled. Rare sight. For now. Next, James traveled to the White Tower of the Silent Zari. The walls were smooth and cold like ice. The room was so quiet that James felt his heartbeat loud in his ears. The Zari people moved like shadows. Their leader, Zira, was pale with soft, glowing eyes. She did not speak much, but tested James with riddles. "Answer this," she said quietly. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind." "What am I?" James thought carefully. "An echo." Zira nodded once. "Good. Another." She asked more riddles about light, time, and silence. James used his memory and imagination. Some riddles were hard, but he did not give up. Finally, Zira smiled faintly. "You think like us. You see beyond the noise. You may be one of us." James felt relief. "Thank you." But the Silent Zari were not easy to please. They tested his patience and calm. James learned to listen carefully and move with care. The last tower was the Iron Clan. It was made of cold steel and machines. The air smelled of oil and metal. The Iron Clan trusted only machines and logic. Their leader was a robot named Vex. Vex spoke in a voice of metal and lights. "You are a human," Vex said. "Humans break machines. Why should we trust you?" James smiled. "I am a mechanic. I fix machines every day." Vex challenged James to repair a broken machine, a complex device that even Vex could not fix. James studied the machine carefully. He used tools from Earth and his hands to work on the parts. Slowly, the machine began to move again. Lights blinked, and the device hummed. Vex's eyes blinked in surprise. "You understand machines. You are useful." James bowed his head. "I only want to help." With respect from the Iron Clan, James felt hope. But the three houses still did not trust each other. They feared war. James thought hard. How could he bring peace to enemies? He remembered stories from Earth about people who made peace by sharing meals, listening to each other, and showing kindness. James invited leaders Rokar, Zira, and Vex to a meeting. They sat in a circle, tense but curious. James spoke slowly. "We all want the same thing: safety, peace, and a future for our children. Fighting only brings pain. Together we are stronger." Rokar grunted. "Words again." James smiled. Then let us share a meal. Let us learn about each other. At first, the leaders were suspicious, but as they ate together, they talked about their hopes and fears. James listened to each of them and spoke honestly. Slowly, walls began to fall. Rokar said, "Maybe humans have a way we do not know," Zira added. "There is wisdom in kindness." Vex nodded. "Logic agrees. Unity is strength." James felt joy. He had done what many thought impossible. He turned to Kalon. "Your people will be proud." Kalon smiled brightly. "Thank you, Father." But their peace was fragile. James knew dangers still waited. Returning to Empress Valsara, James said, "The houses listen, but trust is not complete. They need to see my heart." Valsara's eyes shone. "The true test will come soon. Be ready." Just then, alarms sounded throughout the palace. Red lights flashed. A dark fleet of ships appeared in the sky, the Zark's Dominion, enemies of Varelia. Valsara's voice was cold. "They want to destroy all we have built." James felt a rush of fear and courage. "We will stand and fight." Kalon looked at James with hope. "You are my father now. Protect us." James clenched his fists. "I will protect you, and this galaxy." Together, they prepared for war. But James knew something deeper was coming. A test of loyalty, love, and power. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was part of something greater. The red alarms echoed through the shining halls of the Varelian palace. Outside, the sky was filled with the dark shapes of the Zark's Dominion's warships. They moved like shadows, ready to destroy everything Empress Valsara and her people had built. James Carter stood beside Kalon and Empress Valsara. He could feel his heart pounding. The fight was not just for power, it was for the future of a new family, a new galaxy. Valsara's voice was calm but strong. "James, this is your true test. Will you protect Varelia and my son? Will you stand with me as ruler?" James looked at Kalon's hopeful eyes. "I will, no matter what." The Empress nodded. "Then prepare yourself." James had never fought in a war. On Earth, he was a mechanic, not a soldier. But here, he was more. He was a father, a leader. He had to be brave. The three houses, Zarn, Zari, and Iron Clan, joined their forces. Soldiers in shining armor took positions, while machines of war rumbled to life. Rokar stood beside James, his fierce eyes burning with determination. "We fight for Varelia, for peace." Zyra, quiet but sharp, watched from the shadows. "Our silence will be our strength." Vex, the robot leader, calculated. Strategies. Probability of victory, 67%. We can improve. James felt the pressure, but he remembered the lessons he had learned. Strength was not just force. It was courage, unity, and hope. The Zark's ships fired first. Bright beams of energy lit the sky. The Varelian defenses held, but the fight was brutal. James found himself in the command center, surrounded by screens and glowing maps. Soldiers moved quickly, ready to obey his orders. He studied the Zark's movements. "Use the ion disruptors, near the southern ridge. They can disable enemy ships temporarily." The commanders nodded and sent the fighters. Outside, the battle raged. Ships collided. Explosions shook the air and stars vanished in bursts of light. In the middle of the chaos, James saw Kalon watching from a safe place. The boy's face was pale but brave. James knew he had to protect him. Suddenly, a large Zark's ship broke through the defenses. It moved directly toward the palace. Rokar shouted, "I will stop it." He led a squadron of fighters, roaring through the sky like fire. James stayed behind, coordinating defenses. His hands moved over controls. He barely understood, but he trusted his instincts. The palace shook as the Zark ship fired powerful blasts. Walls cracked and alarms screamed. Valsara stood tall. "We cannot let them take the palace." James made a quick decision. "Activate the gravity pulse. It will pull the Zark ships into a trap." The machines hummed, and the pulse sent a wave through space. The Zark's ships slowed and lost control. Rokar's fighters attacked with renewed strength. The big Zark ship exploded in a flash of fire. The battle was not over, but hope had returned. James felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Valsara. "You fought well," she said softly. "You have the heart of a ruler." James looked at Kalen, who smiled bravely. But peace was still fragile. The Zark's dominion would return, and James knew the greatest challenge was still ahead. He was no longer just a mechanic from Earth. He was a father, a leader, and a protector. The galaxy was watching, and he would not fail. The battle had ended. The Zark's Dominion ships were gone, retreating into the dark space beyond Varelia's stars. The palace was scarred but standing. James Carter looked out over the city from the highest tower, his heart full of hope, and, heavy with responsibility, Empress Valsara stood beside him. Her silver eyes shone softly. "You have done well, James. The three houses have united, and the Zark's threat is broken." James nodded. "But it is only the beginning. We must build peace that lasts." Keelan ran up the stairs and jumped into James's arms. "Father, you saved us all." James hugged the boy tightly. "I will always protect you, Keelan. No matter what." The people of Varelia were watching. News spread fast across the stars. How a human from Earth, a simple mechanic, had brought hope and unity to a galaxy torn by war. In the Great Hall, leaders from the Fireborn Zarn, Silent Zari, and Iron Clan gathered. Rokar, Zira, and Vex stood side by side with James and Valsara. It was a new council, a new way to rule together. Rokar spoke first, his voice strong. "James, you have shown us courage and wisdom. We trust you." Zira added quietly, "You understand silence and strength. You are one of us." Vex's metal eyes glowed softly. "Logic supports your leadership." James looked at them amazed. "Together, we can create a future where no one fears war." Valsara smiled. "James, will you marry me now? Will you be Kaelin's father and ruler of this galaxy?" James looked at Kaelin, then at Valsara. His heart was full. "Yes, I will." The ceremony was simple but powerful. Under the 3 moons of Varelia, James and Valsara joined hands. The leaders swore to protect the galaxy as one family. Days passed, and James learned more about his new role. He studied the history of Varelia, its people, and its secrets. He met with scientists and warriors, artists and thinkers. Every day was a lesson. He missed Earth sometimes, his home, his old life. But here he had a new family and a new purpose. One evening, Kellen asked, "Father, why did you come here? Why leave Earth?" James smiled. "Because I wanted to be part of something bigger, to protect those I love, and to prove that even a simple man can change the stars." Kellen nodded. "You are the best father." James hugged him. "And you are the best son." But peace was not easy. Some in the galaxy did not want the new order. They whispered in dark corners, plotting to bring chaos back. James knew he had to be ready. The future was uncertain, but he was no longer afraid. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. With Valsara by his side and Kaelin's laughter filling the halls, James Carter, the mechanic from Earth, had become a legend. A man who married an empress, ruled a galaxy, and brought hope where there was none. A father who begged for a family and found one among the stars.